Memorial Day, a time for remembrance, a time to honor those who gave all. But beneath the parades and picnics, a darkness lingers, a chilling reminder that some sacrifices echo far beyond the grave. This Memorial Day, two stories surfaced, tales whispered in hushed tones, stories of lives brutally claimed, of tranquility shattered. These are their stories. The old cabin stood silent, nestled amongst pines, overlooking the still waters of Crystal Lake. The lake, with its glassy surface, reflected the towering trees and the sky above, creating a mirror image that seemed almost otherworldly. It was a place of solace, a sanctuary away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. The cabin had an aura of tranquility, a sense of peace that enveloped anyone who stepped through its wooden doors. This cabin was more than just a structure. It was a family heirloom, passed down through generations. Each creak of the floorboards, each mark on the walls told a story of those who had come before. This year, it was Sarah and David's turn, a young couple seeking respite from the city's clamour. They had heard tales of the cabin's magic, of its ability to heal and rejuvenate the soul. The drive was long, winding through dense forests and narrow paths, but the anticipation of reaching their destination kept their spirits high. As they approached, the sight of the cabin, nestled among the trees, brought a sense of relief and excitement. The silence of the woods was welcoming, a stark contrast to the constant noise of the city. The only sounds were the rustling of leaves and the distant call of birds, creating a symphony of nature that was both soothing and invigorating.
We unpacked, taking our time to settle into the cabin. The scent of pine needles and damp earth filled the air, a reminder of the natural beauty that surrounded us. The aroma was intoxicating, a blend of freshness and earthiness that seemed to cleanse our minds and bodies. We felt an immediate connection to the land, as if we were meant to be there. Days were spent in blissful solitude, fishing, reading, and exploring the woods. Each day brought new discoveries, from hidden trails to secret clearings where the sunlight filtered through the trees in golden beams. The crackling fire was our only companion in the evenings, its warmth and light providing comfort as the darkness of the forest closed in around us. We would sit by the fire sharing stories and dreams, feeling a deep sense of contentment. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, we noticed it. The colors were so vivid, it felt like the sky was ablaze, a breathtaking display that left us in awe. A single white rose lying on our doorstep. It was a curious sight, out of place in the wild surroundings of the cabin. We wondered who could have left it there and why. No card, no note, just the rose, its petals oddly cold to the touch. It felt almost unnatural, as if it had been plucked from a different world. The mystery of the rose lingered in our minds, adding an element of intrigue to our stay at the cabin.
David dismissed it as a prank, thinking it was just the neighborhood kids playing tricks again. He had always been the rational one, quick to find logical explanations for the unexplainable. "It's just the wind," he would say, "or probably an animal." But this time, his reassurances felt hollow, even to him. But Sarah couldn't shake off a growing unease. She had always been more attuned to the subtle shifts in their environment, the small changes that hinted at something more. Her intuition screamed that something was wrong, something beyond the realm of pranks and logical explanations. The next day, a child's toy soldier lay on their porch swing, its painted eyes staring blankly ahead. It hadn't been there the night before. Sarah picked it up, feeling a chill run down her spine. Who had placed it there? And why? The toy seemed to carry a message, a silent warning that they were not alone. The woods, once peaceful, now seemed to press in, filled with unseen eyes. The trees, which had always provided a sense of tranquility, now felt like silent sentinels, watching their every move. The air was thick with tension, and every rustle of leaves seemed to whisper secrets they couldn't quite hear. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Sarah lay awake, her mind racing with thoughts of the toy soldier and the oppressive woods. David, too, found himself tossing and turning, unable to shake the feeling that they were being watched. The darkness seemed to close in around them, suffocating and relentless. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the house settling felt amplified in the silence of the night. Each sound was a reminder that they were not alone, that something or someone was out there, watching and waiting. Every rustle of leaves outside their window sent shivers down their spines. The wind seemed to carry whispers, voices that were just out of reach, taunting them with their elusiveness. The shadows cast by the moonlight danced eerily, creating shapes that seemed to move with a life of their own.
Then the whispers began. At first, they were faint, almost imperceptible, like the distant murmur of a stream. But as the night wore on, they grew louder, more insistent. It was as if the woods themselves were trying to communicate, to convey a message that was just beyond their understanding. Soft, indistinct murmurs, just on the edge of hearing. Sarah strained to make out the words, but they remained elusive, like a dream that slips away upon waking. The whispers seemed to come from all around them, circling the cabin, drawing closer with each passing moment. They seemed to emanate from the woods, circling the cabin, drawing closer. The once familiar landscape had transformed into a place of dread, where every shadow held a potential threat. The whispers grew louder, more urgent, as if demanding their attention, their acknowledgement.
David, now afraid, tried to rationalize the sounds, clinging to his belief in logic and reason. "It's just the wind," he repeated, but his voice lacked conviction. The fear in his eyes betrayed his words, revealing the growing doubt that gnawed at him. But I felt a cold certainty. We were not alone. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming, a constant presence that loomed over them. The shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own, hinting at unseen entities lurking just out of sight. The cabin, once a sanctuary, had become a prison, and the woods their captors.
Suddenly, the car radio crackled to life. The static was deafening, filling the car with an eerie, unsettling noise that seemed to come from another world. A voice, raspy and filled with malice, filled the small space. It was as if the very air had turned malevolent, pressing in on them from all sides. Narrator. Panic set in. Their hearts raced, pounding in their chests like a drumbeat of fear. They exchanged terrified glances, their minds racing to comprehend the inexplicable. They decided to leave, to pack their things and escape the growing terror that had enveloped the cabin. The decision was made in a heartbeat, driven by an instinctual need to survive. But as they turned the key in the ignition, the engine sputtered and died. The car, their last hope of escape, had betrayed them. The silence that followed was suffocating, a void filled with dread. Silence. They were trapped. The darkness outside seemed to press in closer, as if the night itself was alive and watching them. Every shadow seemed to move, every rustle of leaves a whisper of doom. The whispers grew louder, morphing into distinct voices, chanting their names, their laughter echoing through the trees. It was a chorus of the damned, a symphony of despair that chilled them to the bone.
"You're on sacred ground," it hissed. The voice was everywhere and nowhere, a disembodied presence that seemed to seep into their very souls. This is their memorial, their final resting place. The words were a revelation, a terrible truth that dawned on them with the weight of 1,000 nightmares. It was then they understood. The cabin, the woods, everything around them was a monument to the dead, a place where the past refused to rest. The cabin, the woods, it wasn't a sanctuary, it was a trap, a lure for the unwary, a place where the living could be ensnared by the spirits of the past. It was a graveyard, a forgotten battlefield, and they were intruding on a slumber best left undisturbed. The realization hit them like a physical blow, leaving them breathless and paralyzed with fear. They clung to each other, seeking comfort in the only place they could find it. Their breaths came in ragged gasps, their eyes wide with terror as they listened to the voices that surrounded them. The fog rolled in, thick and impenetrable, swallowing the forest and everything in it. It was as if the world itself was closing in on them, sealing their fate. But even in the face of such overwhelming fear, a spark of determination ignited within them. They would not go quietly into the night. They would fight, they would survive. With a deep breath, they stepped out of the car, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them in the dark forest. Their journey was far from over, but they would face it together, come what may.